And greetings and welcome to the QCast. This is season 5, episode 42. There's all kinds of great conference races that are unfolding as we speak. Just watched some UAA basketball where WashU won at Emory. Chicago grinds out a game at Rochester. NYU about to beat Case in a close game. So the UAA is a great race. Another great race is the Landmark Conference, very tight. And we're going to go to the Landmark, which is in Region 5, to my friend Mike McSloy, the head men's basketball coach of the Drew University Rangers. And Mike, first of all, I have to say this is the first time on the QCast that a picture that I have taken is someone's actual background. Could you give a little history of how this photo I took got to be your Zoom background?
Yeah, so first of all, I was looking for a Zoom background. I didn't want a bleak white wall in the background, but I figured it would be a good touch. You came to our game last year. I think you were visiting family in the
Yeah,
Virginia area.
yeah,
And, you came to our game last year, a Catholic, and the boys played well. I think we had a good upset that day, and you took a couple pictures, posted them on Twitter. So, when you asked me to be on the QCast, which I was honored to be asked to be on, I said it was a no-brainer to throw it up on my background.
well, I love it, and I had a great time. It was a kind of a unplanned trip where we were in DC visiting family, and just kind of realized that that Catholic and Drew were playing. I can't remember one of the players on. I think a player on Catholic said, "Hey, we're playing at this time," and I pulled it off. I was glad I did. The Catholic people were so awesome while I was there. You guys were great. It was nice to meet you and your staff, and it was a big road win for you guys. Let's talk about kind of Mike where we're sitting right here, just so people know the Landmark race, which is a great league. You guys are sitting 10-0 right now in the conference. Catholic is 8-1, and obviously they're a great program. They were awesome last season. They have another good team. Um, how are you guys feeling sitting here like 10-0, leading the league? How's everything going for you guys so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's going good. I think we knew coming into this year that we would have a good team. We have a lot of seniors. We have 6 seniors, 5 of whom play significant minutes for us. And so we knew we had a chance to be pretty good. And, the conference race is really tight. We're not settling at the moment. We're excited to be in the position that we are, but we know some of those games, like on the road at Catholic, was a really tight game that went to overtime.
Right.
In our home win against Wilkes, we won by 2 on pretty much a last second shot that we were trailing the entire game minus the last 4 seconds. So, Susquehanna is always a really good program. They are kind of on a roll right now. Moravian is much improved since Coach Keckler, who I took over for at Drew, has been there. So every game is really hard. Some of the league travel is difficult. We're going anywhere from 2 and 4 hours, so the road games are really hard. But
Right.
we're excited with where we're at, and our eyes are just on the next game here when we go to Scranton on Wednesday.
And as you may or may not know, I have a vested interest in this race because involved in this little pool where there's a bunch of us and we pick like winners of all the conferences before any games are played. And I picked Drew to win the Landmark. And so I'm grinding out every game with you guys because Ryan Whitnable won this thing last year. He's got this awesome trophy. I didn't do very well last year, and I really want to win this thing. So I am sending you guys very positive vibes, Mike. Much respect to Catholic and everyone else, but I picked you guys. And so, like, I'm all in right now. And I don't mean to put any additional pressure on you guys, but I'm really in your corner this season.
No, we appreciate it. It's cool. Our players are really into what you do on the QCast, the D3 Hoops guys, the D3 Datacast, the Massey ratings, and when you had tweeted out today that I was going to be on, in agreement to be on the QCast, Matthew Zanker texted me. He's like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." So the guys are aware that you're in our corner. We don't feel the added pressure. We just more or less feel the added support from your end.
Well, I appreciate that. And since he texted you, let's talk about this kid. 6'5" sophomore forward, comes off the bench for you. At least he started some games. He's coming off the bench a little bit. I think your last game he came off the bench. 11 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal per game. Talk about kind of the role that he's playing for you right now.
Yeah, so Matt's a really talented kid. Grew up in New York City. Last year, he kind of had the injury bug a little bit, so he never really found his rhythm in the rotation and really went to work in the offseason. He got stronger. He played a lot of hoops, got better, and he's a key part in what we're doing. And he started a bunch of games for us early on. Pat Higgins, who's our starting point guard, was out with a little bit of an injury. And then when Pat came back, it just
Right.
made sense for us to assert him back into the starting lineup. And Matt gives us a lot of punch off the bench. He can really score the basketball. He's pretty dynamic off the dribble. He's going to watch this, so I will say he's an improving defender. He's got a little ways to go on that end, but he's bought into what we're doing. And yeah, he's been a huge addition for us this year.
Your team, you have a lot of balance, and Josh Klein is your leading scorer. He's a 6'2" senior guard. You had a great senior group returning to this team from that group that I saw play a year ago. Josh Klein, 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals a game, filling up the stat sheet currently. Talk about your leading scorer, Josh Klein.
Yeah, Josh is a special player. He, coming out of high school, I think he was under recruited. His senior year was that shortened COVID season, so he ended up going to a local junior college. Really good student, but just needed an opportunity to play a little bit more and get some more exposure. And we were lucky enough to land him for these last 2 years. I've never coached a player who plays harder in practice than Josh. Like every day, especially early in the season, every day is game 7 to him. And he's the ultimate like team first guy. I mean, he came off the bench for us last year. Very well could have been in the starting five. Just always does what the team asks of him. And it's really nice to see him, in his hard work kind of pay dividends this year.
Yeah, he's been. I've watched about 3 of your games, and he's always in the middle of everything, having a huge season. Another senior is Malcolm Newman, who's a 6'1" senior guard, 12 points, 2 rebounds a game. He's shooting the three at 40%, which is a big time number. Talk a little bit, if you would, about Malcolm Newman.
Yeah, so Malcolm's a senior, kind of his career path. So his freshman year was the COVID year. Drew won the landmark championship in that COVID shortened season where they play only, conference games. And then his sophomore year, which was my first year at Drew, unfortunately in the third game, he tore his knee and recovery, took, I think, a little bit longer than expected. So last year, instead of coming back for his senior year and only playing in 8 games, he decided to take a gap year. And so now he's finally back, and it's really nice to see him get in a rhythm. And he was a second team all landmark conference player as a sophomore. But for us, he's been tremendous. Like another guy who just does whatever we ask. He defends really well. He's shooting the ball at a high level. And I think as the games go on, he's getting more and more in a rhythm and getting more comfortable with our play style.
A junior that's having a big year is David Musial, a 6'5" junior forward, 8 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. He's shooting 55% from the field. So he's kind of doing a little of everything for you. Talk about David, if you would.
Yeah, so David went to Don Bosco High School along with his twin brother, Devin, who's on our team, and their older brother, Dylan, is our assistant coach. So it's kind of a family affair there. But David, just like his brother Devin, are super unselfish. I think sometimes offensively, they're unselfish to a fault. Like you look at David's shooting numbers and you kind of would expect that guy to shoot a little bit more. But, he defers to his teammates offensively. He's getting a little bit more aggressive here in the last few games, which we need from him. But defensively, he's a game changer. Last year, he was the Landmark Conference Defensive Player of the Year. We pressed for the entire game. So he's kind of the leader in that regard. He's providing us a lot of energy defensively. And honestly, he can really affect a game by never scoring the basketball.
Sure.
It's just a really nice bonus when he decides to.
Another senior, a 6'6" senior forward, Peso Crump. What a great name. Peso Crump, 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists per game. Talk about Peso Crump.
Yeah, so Peso, similar to Josh, has been with us the last 2 years. And Peso, I think he had a good year last year, but I think he's, he came from a junior college situation. I think maybe the Division III level, the Landmark Conference, the physicality, he needed to adjust to that a little bit. And he he really went to work in the weight room. Like he completely changed his body from last year to this year. But what's so special about him is he's really transformed his game. Like last year, he shot a lot of mid-range jump shots, which we try to encourage him not to do. And this year, he's super efficient around the basket, hitting threes, creating for others. And a lot of times when our offense is flowing really well, it's because of him in the position that he plays.
And then one other player to ask you about, you mentioned the point guard position. You had the injury earlier to Pat Higgins. He's now come back. And so you have this kind of great 4 minutes. We talk about Matt Zinker, but Pat Higgins, a 5'11 senior guard, averaging 13 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, great point guard numbers across the board. Talk about Pat Higgins.
Yeah, I mean, Pat's a special player. He was first team all Landmark Conference last year. I think with, some like Matt Zanker, Eli Savage, some other guys taking a more increased role in the scoring. Pat's really doing a great job of facilitating the offense since he's been back. He's really taking care of the basketball. He turns it over at a very low rate, which is really important. And similar to Josh, I talked about Josh being he practices the hardest out of anybody I've ever coached. Pat works the hardest out of anybody I've ever coached. Like he is really gets after his craft. He's always in the gym. And, a perfect example would be we lose to Susquehanna last year in the playoffs. And the next day I go to the office at 8:30 in the morning and he's in the gym in a deep sweat. And that's not fake. That is genuinely who he is. And the results show as a result of that. So it's been a lot of fun coaching these seniors. James Anderson also came back for his graduate
Right.
year. Aiden Lazenby, doesn't see a lot of minutes, but he's an important team guy, kind of a glue guy for us on the bench. And I'm just trying to soak up these last guys because I'm definitely going to miss them when they're gone.
Yeah, it's a great group. And I remember getting the preseason top 25 ballot this year and seeing like how much you guys were returning, thinking, boy, they have a chance to have a really special season. And here we are 10-0. You're 14-3 overall. I wanted to ask a little bit about your style, Mike, the style of play, because you guys score 91 points a game. And when people look at that, obviously, they wonder what kind of style you guys are playing. So yeah, style wise, 91 points a game. How would you describe? Because I'm fascinated by hearing coaches describe, like Eric Bridgeland playing a high powered offense at Redlands, how he describes it. How do you describe, Mike, the offense, the system on both ends of the floor, really, that you're running?
Yeah. So, the one thing my first year at Drew was kind of a little bit of a learning curve for me. We played predominantly zone defense, and I think we took our lumps. It was kind of an adjustment year, and then I went back and did some research on, who has been successful in the conference. Maybe playing a little bit of a different way, and we found that Moravian, when Justin Potts was there, who's now at Montclair State,
Right.
had a lot of success. Pressing, playing up tempo on offense, shooting a lot of threes. And I thought to myself, okay, I think we have good skill. I don't think we have incredible size. And I think we have decent athleticism. So I think it's an opportunity for us to implement this style. And the guys have kind of ran with it. I think some of the challenges are that nobody plays massive minutes, right?
Right.
Nobody's playing 35, 40 minutes a game. But we have a lot of guys who play between 12 and 28 minutes. And they've done a great job of buying into that system. And, defensively, our goal is to kind of speed up the game and put a lot of pressure on teams. And then offensively, it's pretty, free flowing 5-out offense. We definitely have numbers that we're trying to hit offensively in terms of threes and stuff like that. But we're also not going to go out of our way and just play the analytics, right? Like our game
Right.
against this year, they did a great job of taking away the three for us. We only made 6, which is half of what we usually make. And the guys adjusted and they got to the basket, got more to the free throw line. So I think it's an attractive style for recruits. The offensive part of it, I should say, the defensive part of it is definitely a sacrifice on their bodies, but all in all, I think it's worked for us so far.
One stat that jumped out, that jumped off the page to me: 200. Your opponents have 217 assists and 311 turnovers. To me, that's always a great stat for a team that plays a similar style to you. Is how difficult you're making it on the other team. Yeah, 217 versus 311. That's a big number right there. when I saw you guys play in person, I'm always kind of blown away when I actually go to a game because most of the games I watch are on stream. And so, every now and then I go watch my guys up at Illinois Wesleyan, or I'll go to games here in Dallas. Saw your game, blown away by like how physical these games are
Yeah.
in real life. You go to these games, you're going to Catholic versus Drew, Drew at Catholic. And man, that was like an intense, fast paced, physical game. Just talk about like the physicality at this D3 level and at the landmark level, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I know you often post about it, like encouraging high school kids to get in the weight room before
Right.
they get to college because it's really no joke, and it's hard, I think, for teams to be successful playing, predominantly freshmen and sophomores, because like you mentioned, we go to Catholic last year, this year we play Wilkes. I mean, these guys they're strong, like they're men,
Right.
and we went to NYU this year for a non-conference road game, and these guys are all really, really strong, and they're physical, and the refs, as the season goes, I think the refs let you get away with a little bit more
For
and
sure.
more pushing and grabbing, and yeah, so the physicality at this level is definitely something to behold.
Yeah, that you guys played NYU really tough, and they're loaded, right? They have last year I watched us play at Cal Lutheran, and Brock Sesko comes into NYU, and Jack Stone's a great player at Carnegie Mellon. He comes into NYU. They have some other dudes that came in. I mean, that's a very talented team that you played well against. Just talk about that NYU game a little bit.
Yeah, I thought watching them on film, I mean, they're tremendous. I mean, their offense is super efficient. I mean, if you look at the D3 DataCast numbers, they're right at the top every single day.
Yeah.
But I knew watching them that nobody at least had played the way we do against them in terms of the pressure and stuff. So I thought for at least going into the game that maybe we could shake it up a little bit and maybe force some turnovers, which we did. But I think what's so impressive about those guys is the littlest mistake you make, they're going to make you pay, right? Like all the
Yeah.
great teams do. Illinois Wesleyan, Emory, WashU, a bunch of the NESCAC teams. Like you miss a rotation defensively, they're going to hit a three. Whereas if you play
Right.
maybe one of the mediocre or middle of the pack teams, they might miss it and you might be able to get out and run in transition. But going into the game, there's our guys expected to win. Like they really thought they had a chance at this game. And somebody had asked me like, "Oh, was it like a moral victory for your guys?" And I said, "Not really. When you have six seniors and five of them play a lot, like they weren't happy after that game. They wanted
Right.
to improve, get better." And I think I've learned that if you have an older team, a team that can kind of hang with those teams, it's better to play those teams in non-conference because I think it helps you when it matters most.
Absolutely. I think with the way NPI works, it seems like NPI is pretty good at rewarding the teams when they beat good teams, and so those are important games to play and try to find a way to win. As far as like D3, why D3, Mike? You've been a lot of places in D3. This is your third season at Drew. Is that correct?
Yes.
Third season at Drew. You were at St. Joseph's of Long Island in the Skyline before that. You were an assistant at Gettysburg. You were at NYU. You were at Vassar, Conn College, SUNY Maritime, which is your alma mater, I believe. Like
Yes.
Division III about as well as anybody. You have been all over the place. What is it about this level that you appreciate so much that you've sort of made a career coaching D3 hoopers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely evolved over the last 10, 11 years, but I think the biggest thing that I love about D3 is, as Coach Zimmerman would say, it's number one, it's really good basketball. And I think it's basketball in today's world at the purest level. And what I mean by that is all of these guys are paying their way to be at school. They're all
Right.
paying their way to be at Drew. They're not on scholarship. There's no, I mean, I don't, at least for us, there's no NIL money. And we're all doing this because we love it, right? And we're all trying to do something together. And I think that's kind of been driving me since, I got into coaching was these guys are very similar to how I was, like, maybe uh, just loving a basketball. And I think there are guys on our team who could play at a Division II school at the scholarship level, but they've also recognized that, the importance of academics and how that plays a part into their experience as well.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing I like about these last 4 years into like with the extra COVID year is that it really has proven once and for all that D3 guys can play elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's proven that like once and for all. You look at Miles Barnstable, who was at Whitewater last year. He's one of the best players for D1 St. Thomas
Right.
right now. And like we've had, since we don't have a grad school, Illinois Wesleyan doesn't keep its fifth year guys. And so we've had 5 kids now go start at the D2 level, including a kid right now that's starting for the number 9 team in D2. And I think that's something that we all knew, right, Mike, is that we all knew this, but all of a sudden, finally, unfortunately, we've gotten to see it play out the last
Correct.
4 years. And I mean, is that something that you've seen play out in your region of the country where kids have gone on for fifth years at bigger places and had success?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think, since I got into coaching, like my real first like true coaching experience was at Con College in 2013, 2014. And that was Duncan Robinson's freshman year at Williams.
Yeah,
And I mean, obviously he's made millions and millions of dollars playing for the Miami Heat. I'm not even sure he was their best player. Like
he
they're,
wasn't.
yeah, like Michael Mayer was
Yeah,
unbelievable. And
yeah.
then two other guys in that conference that year, Matt Hart from Hamilton ended up transferring to George Washington. Hunter Sabetti from Tufts ended up transferring to Hofstra. So I think everybody in the D3 world has known this forever, that D3 guys can compete at a higher level. But like you said, I think more and more now we're kind of seeing it firsthand, and we're definitely seeing it here on the East Coast as well.
Yeah, it's been an interesting time. I was asked by a Yeshiva fan to ask you about going up against the Terrell Lifer group. Did you guys you defeated them, right? You defeated that ranked Yeshiva team. This, I guess that would have been the same year that we played them, right? The year they had the
Yeah.
50 game streak. You guys beat them that year. What was that game like? Because that was certainly a monster matchup for you versus the Max there.
Yeah, that was really cool. I mean, that's probably the win in my young career that kind of stands out the most. At St. Joe's, Long Island, I don't know I'm sure you're aware, but I'm not sure everybody's aware. There are no dorms. So every player on that team is a commuter, right? Some guys drive 5 minutes, some guys drive an hour every day. So that experience alone is really unique. And then, when we started there, it was a huge rebuild in trying to turn around the program. And we had played them earlier in the season at St. Joe's. They were number 1 in the country. They ended up losing to you guys, Illinois Wesleyan. I think they lost to Farmingdale before us. But they were still ranked 15 in the country when we went there. And I think we had a big weight off our shoulders because earlier that day we had clinched a playoff spot. So I
Right.
think, you go in there late on a Saturday night, gym is packed, and our guys played, very freely. And yeah, it was a really unique experience. I mean, that was a huge moment for our program. I was super happy for the players. And, I have the ultimate respect for Coach Elliott Steinmetz and really for his players too, because after they lost, they handled it so graciously. Like kids are rushing the court. They don't care if they win or lose. And Ryan Terrell staying after and signing autograph, and Gabe Lifer signing autograph. And they're coming up to our players after the handshake line and congratulating them. And I mean, that's kind of what D3 is all about, right? Having a tremendous amount of respect for your opponents after the game.
I believe that's the game where Ryan Terrell was signing autographs like against the padding wall thing. I remember, I don't know why I remember this, but like they had lost, that loss was big for them. That was a bit losing to us was big, but it wasn't big, right? It was like, okay, you lost to the number 4 team. That by that point, that was starting to become a damaging loss, right? And I remember like all these kids, Ryan Terrell, like 2 minutes after the buzzer is signing autographs up against the wall. And yeah, special group, kind of a whole YD3 story. And but yeah, that was a huge win for you guys at St. Joseph's of Long Island back that season. As far as Drew University, Mike, just for people that don't know Drew, like a lot of the people that tune into this don't know much about the university itself. Tell us about the school, if you would.
Yeah, so Drew is a small high academic liberal arts college. It's located in Madison, New Jersey, which is a super nice, quaint town. And it's about a 45-minute train ride away from New York City, right? So what I love about it for our players, for recruits, is you never have to leave campus if you don't want. If you do, there's a lot going on in the surrounding areas, and then New York City is right in your back door. So it's an undergraduate population of about 2,000 students, so it's pretty small,
Sure.
and I think what's really special about Drew is the kind of the community feel that it provides. Like our student athletes do a great job of supporting one another. The professors, faculty, staff, like everybody is very welcoming, not only the student athletes, but the student body in general. And it's a really special place. And when I first started there, I really got to begin to recognize that pretty quickly.
In terms of recruiting to Drew, there are so many D3s on the East Coast. Like, I mean, within like 200 miles of you guys, I don't know how many D3s there are, but it's a bunch. And then there's so many non D3s or, D2s, or I'm not sure what the NAI scene out there, but there's a million places kids can go play basketball out your direction. How do you land kids that are good fits for Drew?
For sure. So I think like you mentioned, the biggest challenge is there are so many schools, right? And just the NJAC alone,
Yeah,
we're competing against those guys, and they're state schools and often at a lower ticket price. But I think we do a good job of just finding guys who fit our program. And what I mean by that is guys who love basketball, who want to work really hard, who want to get better. And we've done a good job, I think, of recruiting in New Jersey. But I think, me being from New York originally has allowed us to branch out a little bit. And then I think one of the bigger selling points for us is we're starting to tap into different areas. Like we have a young man on our team from Tennessee, we have
sure.
Georgia, two kids from California. And I think in large part of that reason is because we're only 25 minutes away from Newark International Airport. So if a kid wants to come to the East Coast, wants to be close to New York City, have that access, and maybe they're not on the radar of like an NYU or a Stevens, in a lot of cases, we're probably the next best option for Division III purposes.
Yeah, just so competitive. And I'm curious, I talk about this a lot with recruiting and different coaches, is in the Midwest, like kids in Chicago, suburban Chicago, they know all about D3. Kids that are older than them on their high school team are playing at Wisconsin Platteville and Illinois Wesleyan and Augustana and Wheaton. So to me, there's a strong brand of Division III in the Midwest. I'm sure Ohio is the same way. I know Indiana's the same way. Out your way, is it that way, or do you have to kind of sell kids on Division III first before they'll even consider, like, what is the brand out there like of Division III itself?
Yeah, I think it's growing, but I don't think it's to the level of the Midwest, right? I think a lot of times we spend a lot of energy on trying to inform the recruits about how good the level is, and they're all looking to play at the higher level, Division I, Division II. And we try to explain to them like, hey, we scrimmaged Division II this year and we beat them, right? And we were without our starting point guard. Like, uh, try to put the level aside and try to look at the overall experience. And I think that can be a challenge. But I think it's the overall brand of Division III is growing. I think Yeshiva's played a huge part in that.
Sure.
NYU having the success they are now is playing a huge role in that. And then the NJAC being an overly competitive league,
Yeah.
and social media, I think, is helping too, because now, right, it's more prevalent in their faces. Like, hey, these guys are really good. The level's really high, and you can have a great experience playing Division III basketball.
Agree. And by the way, I like your colors. I mean, I think I'm looking at the Illinois Wesleyan Titans playing a road game right there in that picture I took. I mean, that's the same green. So I'm a big fan of the colors. Just one more question for you. Mike, and then we'll kind of start to wrap up with final thoughts. But the landmark, just like I asked you about Drew, I want you to talk just a little bit about the league, and I'm going to list the schools in order of the men's basketball standings right now, just so people can recognize, because you've heard of all of them. So Drew's 10-0, Catholics 8-1, Susquehanna's 7-3, Wilkes, Moravian, Scranton, Elizabethtown, and Goucher. That's the league right now. Uh, what's the landmark like? What's it like to compete in the landmark?
Yeah, I think, it's number one, it's very well coached, right? The coach at Susquehanna has been there, the head coach there longer than I've been alive, right? And that's not a shot at him. That's just speaks to his experience. Coach Curley at Juniata has been there for over 20 years. Coach Keckler's been in the league now pushing like 16 or 17 years. Coach Danzig at Scranton's been there for so long. And that really hit me in the face. My first game, my first conference game at Drew, we went to Juniata, and I felt like we couldn't get a shot off. I felt like we were a little bit underprepared, and definitely were out coached that game. So I think number one is it's really well coached. I think it's a good brand of basketball. What I've enjoyed about the conference so far is not everybody plays the same way. I think everybody has their way of playing, which makes scouting more
Sure.
challenging, but also makes it a little bit more exciting as well. And it's a league that I think can compete in the NCAA tournament if things fall our way.
And then last question for you, kind of staying on the league front. Your next game is Wednesday at Scranton. That you don't really have any room for error at this point, right? We mentioned that you're 10-0 and Catholics 8-1. So this thing's really tight. So what's the game at Scranton going to be like this Wednesday?
Yeah, I think, Scranton has played a lot more zone than most teams in our league. We talked about uh, teams having different styles. They're playing, like I said, a lot more zone than most. They play at a much slower pace, which is very contrasting to how we want to play. So that part will be a challenge for us, but it's always a great, road trip. They get, good crowd support. They have really good players. And like I said before, we're just hoping to take this thing one game at a time, and hopefully we're in a good spot at the end of it all.
Well, I really appreciate your time here on a Sunday. I know that you've got a lot going on at home. You got some duties at home you need to tend to here very shortly, and so I want to make sure we stick to our time. But boy, 10-0 in the league, 14-3 overall. You guys are having a great season. It's great to finally get you on here. It was fun to see you guys play in person last year, and just again to realize you go to another part of the country and watch a game, and there's more good basketball being played at the D3 level, right? That good basketball is being played all over the place. I went to California last year with the Titans, and they got it handed to them by Cal Lou and Redlands, and you're like, boy, there's a lot of great D3 basketball every part of the country. Um, I guess Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you for any final words. Obviously, you're going to have your Drew guys checking this out, Drew fans, D3 Nation. What would you leave everyone with today, Mike McSloy, on the QCast?
Yeah, I would just want to first thank the Drew fans and the alumni for all of their support since I've been here, but especially this season. I think we have a good group, that has the potential to do some special things. To the guys, if you're watching, I hope you're enjoying your Sunday and you're ready to get back to practice tomorrow because we have a lot of work to do. And to you, Bob, and to all the other guys who are super supportive of D3 hoops. I was talking to somebody before and was telling them I was going to be on the QCast, and it's really neat to see all the publicity and attention that D3 has gotten over the last few years, and I think it's really helping grow our level, and I think our level is special, and it's good to see other people starting to recognize it.
That's great stuff. I know tomorrow there'll be a new D3 Datacast episode. I know for a fact that my friend Dave McHugh is working on getting Hoopsville cranked up. There's some stuff on d3hoops.com. Ryan Allen Scott had a column recently. I think it was entitled "What Happens When Your School Closes," about kind of the financial difficulties in Division Three. D3 Direct on Twitter has all kinds of stuff, and my guy Riley Zayas just took a trip for Pete's sake out to watch Williams and Amherst and Wesleyan and Trinity for the book he is writing. This kid is 21, 22 years old. He's writing a book about Division Three. So shout out to all the folks that are kind of helping to celebrate this level of basketball. It's amazing stuff. And Mike, I really appreciate it. I'll be rooting for Drew, and I hope like Catholic people aren't mad at me. I picked Drew. I have to be all in, and so I'm grinding night and like one game at a time. Mike, let's not get ahead of one game at a time. All that matters right now is Scranton, correct?
Exactly, exactly. Now I have to ask, were you a Drew believer or was it the colors that sold you?
No, I was a Drew believer. I was looking at actual like returners, and I felt like based on who was returning, that Drew was the best pick in the landmark. Again, I had the voting sheet, and so I remember looking like Catholic Drew, and I felt like Drew. So it was not just the Titan green.
Okay.
Well, Mike, thank you so much, and shout out to Matt Zinker for being a QCast fan. I hope this kid scores 20 next game. I really do. I'm rooting for this kid now. So, Mike McSloy is the head men's basketball coach at Drew University. They are currently leading the landmark in a really tight battle. So, Mike will be rooting for you. Thanks for joining me on the QCast.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.